irregardless of any differences. We thank you for unity. We thank you for grace and mercy and the best direction. In the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3 is approval of the minutes for the City Council meetings of January 21st and 22nd, 2026. Are there any corrections or edits to the minutes? Okay. Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes?
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Please vote. We're good? Okay, all right, the motion carries. We have several proclamations. It is a official rodeo season, kickoff proclamation that has been requested by the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo Association. And then I'll invite Mr. Barnett to come up and say a few comments. Yeah, you're fine to stay there. Yeah, please, if you want to bring the group up, please. All right. Whereas the City of San Antonio recognizes the 77th Annual San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo, one of the largest and most prestigious events in the Alamo City, which will be held February 12th through March 1st, 2026 at the Freeman Coliseum. And whereas the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo is a volunteer organization that emphasizes agriculture and education to develop the youth of Texas, and whereas, since its inception, over $279 million have been committed by the organization to the youth of Texas through scholarships, grants, endowments, auctions, the Calf Scramble program, and show premiums, with over $12 million committed in 2025, impacting 22,000 students. And whereas the lifeblood of the organization is its more than 7,000 volunteers, along with corporate partners and patrons who support the event and mission. And whereas in 2025, over 1.5 million visitors enjoyed exciting activities such as world-class entertainment, a carnival, educational exhibits, family and activities and attractions, livestock and horse shows and sales, mutton bustin', calf scramble, extreme bulls, and shopping for the entire family to enjoy. And whereas on February 12th, 2026, the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo will kick off its livestock show to support its mission of educating future generations. Now, therefore, I, Gina Ortiz-Jones, Mayor of the City of San Antonio, in recognition thereof, do hereby proclaim February 12th through March 1st, 2026, to be official rodeo season, and Thursday, February 12th, 2026, to be official Dress Western Day. Okay, over to you, Mr. Barnett, excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, and staff. The San Antonio Rodeo just wanted to thank you for the dedication of this proclamation and your continued support of the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo. The Stock Show and Rodeo has been a part of the East Side for 77 years, and we are excited about our continued growth in this community. Each year, the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo brings a $330 million economic impact to the city of San Antonio just in the month of February. We are committed to continue our efforts with our youth events, outreach efforts, and driving even greater impact as we look at expanding our year. We are excited about the momentum as we're moving into February with events coming up this weekend like the Western Heritage Parade and the Vaquero Cook-Off, which showcase our culture and bring our community together. And looking ahead, our goal is to extend the energy and success that we have in February year-round, continue to bring in more out-of-town visitors, generate tourism, and economic impact for the city of San Antonio. Once again, we thank you all for your dedication for this proclamation, and we are ready for February to get kicked off and this rodeo get going. And like we always like to say, let's rodeo, San Antonio!
Let's see if some of my colleagues would like to say a few words. Councilwoman Villagran.
Thank you. I want to thank you, and I want to thank you that a lot of this is volunteer work. You guys are not getting these big paychecks to do it. This is a passion of yours, and I'm so excited about this. I think about one of my residents, Pat Hasso. I have many residents that are involved, but Pat Hasso is always the one that seems to be, that cowboy hat comes out earlier and earlier every year. So thank you so much for what you do. You know, my personal story is this is not just for San Antonio, it's regional. When I was a first grade teacher out in Castroville, and I started there were like field trip. Oh, the field trip is the rodeo in February. And we would take the kids out there, and it just really helped validate the community that they were living because it was rural, and it really just gave them something to look forward to in terms of what they were doing and in the FFA locally and what their older brothers and sisters were doing with that. And I did have one student do the mutton busting, and I heard about that all year long. Of course, as a first grader. But as we continue to grow and we continue to take our rightful title as a rodeo town, as a town that appreciates all of our people, especially the black cowboys, the vaqueros, all of the community that came to help build which I'll call the Western heritage. As we do that, we want to make sure that we continue to tell the story and take our place. So thank you so much for your efforts. Thank you so much, Mayor, for recognizing this, and I look forward to all the concerts and the rodeo going on the east side. Thank you so much.
Councilwoman Castillo.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning, everyone. As mentioned, just want to commend you all for the great work that y'all do. I'm very proud to be an alumni and have one of the city's only urban FFA programs over at Burbank High School. So just grateful for the work that you all do there. And I also want to highlight, right, on February 3rd, we celebrated the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which is a historical treaty that kind of marks the history of a lot of Tejanos, Vaqueros, so on and so forth here in the state of Texas. So just wanted to thank you all for y'all's continued work, particularly around scholarships and fundraising for our kids, and then of course also providing support to Burbank High School. Thank y'all so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Galvan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to echo a little bit of what Councilor Villagran mentioned about just the extraordinary efforts y'all go through as volunteers, making this incredible event happen every single year. We have a resident in District 6 who's very active in the Northwest Crossing Neighborhood Association, or HOA, Dusty, who is an extremely proud volunteer for the rodeo and always make sure that we're up to date on what's going on next, for the next steps going on over there. And I always think about the rodeo and spending some time with my family there and how cold it always is. But also seeing some of my favorite concerts there. I got to see one of my favorite bands, Goo Goo Dolls, there. I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to be able to make Ludacris this year. So we'll see. It'll be a good one. It'll be a good one. And I also, I have a specific notebook that I've used ever since I've got to council that I was gifted by the rodeo that has all of my constituent services notes so far for my first year, and it's a rodeo notebook. And so while I may have been a critic for Prop B, there was always something special about that notebook for me. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Aldrete.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm so excited about rodeo season. It's a place that it's an event that I love to take my two girls to every year, and we learn about responsibly taking care of our animals and all that kind of stuff. So they learn there constantly, and we're constantly making memories. I too have so many residents who are really involved with the rodeo. I mean, it is a huge volunteer effort. I know JD Morales and Audrey and then Ty Chumley, you know, they're super involved. And I think, I don't know who said it, maybe it was Councilwoman Villagran, where they're like, the cowboy hat comes out earlier and earlier. It does. But thank y'all so much for what y'all do for the city. The economic impact that the rodeo has for San Antonio is tremendous. So, and it is remarkable that it's also volunteer driven. So thank you so much. It's an honor to honor y'all. Thank you.
Councilwoman Spears.
Thank you, Mayor. I love the rodeo. I'm so excited to go again this year. I usually go for my anniversary on Valentine's Day. So I'm so proud of all you do. That everyone has to understand what Councilwoman Aldrete-Cavito said about the economic impact. It's enormous, but also what you do for our kids and kids all over the state is it's unbeatable. You do so much with scholarships and education and character building, and we really can't say enough about how much you do for the kids, but also for San Antonio and me personally, all the memories I have. I don't hop out to cowboy breakfast at 4:30 in the morning in my Rockies anymore, but yeah, it was always too cold and I didn't dress right. But anyway, I'm so many memories and all of the concerts. I was more of the country vein. Councilman Galvan, I would go see Alan Jackson and Clint Black, and I think this year I'm seeing Midland, so Willie Nelson. I don't know, it's just amazing. I just love these 2 weeks. It's always so much fun. So thank you for everything you do and all the volunteer work, and it is the best rodeo in the state and probably across the nation. So thank y'all.
Well, let me reiterate certainly the economic impact, the cultural significance of this event. And so we all are hoping for a very successful rodeo season, and we hope that everybody in our community, frankly, irrespective of their immigration status, is able to enjoy this wonderful city celebration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. February is also Black History Month. Councilmember McKee Rodriguez will be recognized to speak right after I read the proclamation. Okay. The City of San Antonio joins communities across the nation to commemorate February 2026 as Black History Month to honor the achievements, culture, and history contributed by Black Americans to our nation. And whereas the 2026 Black History Month theme is a century of Black history commemorations, honoring 100 years since Carter G. Woodson first launched Negro History Week in February 1926. This theme highlights a century of intentional efforts to study, preserve, and celebrate the history, culture, and contributions of people of African descent. And whereas the theme focuses on looking back at the evolution of Black history from its roots in 1926 to its modern-day impact and examines how the public recognition of Black history has shaped American society and helped transform the status of Black people. And whereas Black Americans have contributed immeasurably to the strength and character of our great nation, giving them of themselves through their labor, voices, vision, and sacrifice to make our country stronger and better. And whereas many local and national events and activities are scheduled during this month-long observance to reflect on the pivotal and profound work Black Americans have done and continue to do in shaping our nation and advancing economic, social, and political rights. Now, therefore, I, Gina Ortiz-Jones, Mayor of the City of San Antonio, in recognition thereof, do hereby proclaim February 2026 to be Black History Month in San Antonio, Texas, and call on all residents to reflect on the rich heritage and remarkable, enduring contributions of Black Americans, the progress made so far, and the work that remains to create a more just and equitable society for all. Councilman McKee Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. Today it is a privilege and honor to recognize Black History Month. Every year is centered around a theme that we collectively observe to reflect on the past, inspire us to action for the future, and understand our power today. This year's theme, as you heard, is a century of Black History Month to mark 100 years of Black History Month commemorations in this country. In 1926, Carter G. Woodson created Negro History Week to highlight the contributions of people of African descent had made to the movement of history and modern culture. And it later became what we now know as Black History Month. The Association for the Study of African American Life, or ASALH, who is credited with continuing the commemorations, asks that we also reflect on our country's founding in recognition of its 250th year this year. And to be clear, this country has always been indigenous land, but we recognize that the current iteration of our government is 250 years old this year. The ASALH shares this year, when we are also commemorating the 250th anniversary of United States independence, it's important to tell not only an inclusive history, but an accurate one. We have never had more need to examine the role of Black History Month than we do when forces weary of democracy seek to use legislative means and book bans to excise Black history from America's schools and public culture. Black history's value is not its contribution to mainstream historical narratives, but its resonance in the lives of Black people. While we recognize Black History Month in February, I lovingly and strongly suggest you make Black history cognizantly a part of your everyday life. Our contributions are already in the government you're affected by or serving in, the products you consume, the inventions that have made your life healthier, more efficient, and helpful. We are all influenced by great Black thinkers and writers like Frederick Douglass and Toni Morrison, by music of all kinds, and by our culinary arts. But many are also still reaping benefits from those of our ancestors who were enslaved and generated massive wealth from their free and stolen labor, to the capitalism and imperialism abroad that harms Black people globally and in our communities today. We still have much work to do collectively, and it begins with knowing where we've been to direct a more just, equitable, and loving future and way forward. In this 100th year of Black History Month commemorations, I'm grateful to stand on the shoulders of giants, and I hope to also be a stepping stone for my daughter and for Black children everywhere to thrive. Thank you, Mayor, and happy Black History Month.
Councilwoman Kaur.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to quickly shout out SACAM, which is in District 1, and all of the work that they are going to be doing to have the second largest Black History Museum in all of the country. I think that's right? Second largest, great. Thank you so much to the SACAM leadership. Thanks, Mayor.
Any other colleagues on this side? Yeah. Councilman Viagran.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilman, for your words. And I think it is important to look, as you mentioned, to the history, but understand the history that's being made now. And thank you, Councilman, for your leadership and the history you're making, and the fact that from years from now, people will be here at this dais, and women and men of color, because of your willingness to serve and lead. So thank you. I look forward to celebrating the month. Thank you.
Councilman Munguia.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important to recognize that while this is a month that we celebrate this, we should really think about the plight of the Black community in our country every day, not just in February, not just for the MLK March. And I was reminded recently that this city doesn't do enough for Juneteenth, right, which is a uniquely Texas thing. So there's a lot more work to be done, and we have to carry these issues with us every day in all of our decisions, and especially what's happening now with the federal government and all that's happening locally with that. We have to remember those struggles and keep that in mind. Thank you.
Councilwoman Castillo.
Thank you, Mayor. As my colleagues have mentioned, this is something that we should continue to keep at the forefront, and I want to commend Councilman McKee Rodriguez for continuing to lead one of the nation's largest MLK marches. And I think as we talk about budgets, we need to continue to support the councilman and the MLK Commission to continue to have the financial support to provide the events all throughout the year during Dream Week. So I just want to commend the councilman and also highlight the work of the Office of Historic Preservation with their historic landmarks and districts. In District 5, OHP has designated Lamar Elementary School, which was a Black elementary school in District 5, segregated, demolished when the school district was reviewing which schools to demolish first. And then, as my colleagues have mentioned, when we look at the demolition of public housing, it was the courts on the east side that were set to be demolished first. And I think that's history that we should continue to ground ourselves in the decision-making process and as we move forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Galvan.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councilmember McKee Rodriguez for the words today. As someone who finds history to be front and center of just anything I think about, something I studied in college, something that has always been very important to me, understanding San Antonio's history, particularly in its integration with Black history, is crucial, not only for the East Side, but throughout an entire city. I think a lot about the Black neighborhoods in the West Side during the time of segregation that still continue to make up a lot of our neighborhoods today and continue to make up my neighborhoods in District 6. I think about West Ridge in the Edgewood area, where Edgewood was one of the first school districts in San Antonio to integrate and continue to honor and try to emphasize that role in their own history. they're one of the first school districts to also hire Black principals and Black teachers here in our city. And the school, E.T. Wren, Elizabeth Wren Middle School, has since closed, but was named after the first Black principal hired in Edgewood ISD. And so again, just kind of showing that kind of intrinsic history of Black history and the commitment that our city must continue to make in bigger strides to address the disparities that we have here with Black health, with Black mortality, Black income barriers, or income inequality. And one big point I want to also mention too, right, is the connection to Kelly Air Force Base, which of course is no longer an Air Force Base here, but is crucial and integral for both Black residents and Latino residents as well, to move up in the economic mobility ladder because it was an integrated Air Force Base. So again, as we celebrate Black History Month, we must continue to make sure that we are pushing on these strides every single day, honoring the history that is here, or that has been here in our city, and moving forward with it too, hand in hand. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Mesa Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the councilman for highlighting this important month for this community, and I look forward to all the celebrations that will happen throughout the city. I think another councilman mentioned the MLK March, which was just a beautiful reminder of what this community can do when we work together, and how ordinary people can do extraordinary things every single day. And so being here on the dais, you get to see that front and center. And so I look forward to the celebration this month. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilman Spears.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a month where we can celebrate and recognize the strength, faith, and resilience of Black families who have helped to build San Antonio. And across our city, Black-owned small businesses, veterans, educators, and community leaders contribute every single day to our local economy and our neighborhoods. And this month is about honoring that hard work and their service and the belief that opportunity should be within reach for everyone. I encourage residents to support Black-owned businesses all year long and attend local events and celebrate the people who continue to move our city forward. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege because one of the effects of our city being so economically segregated is that we're also racially segregated. And so sometimes growing up on one side of town, you won't hear about the history of another side of town, which is so critical. So one person, frankly, that I didn't know a lot about until I became mayor was St. Artemisia Bowden, who is responsible for the only historical Black college, which is also actually a Hispanic serving institution here in our great city. So I'm going to read a little bit about her, and I'll challenge everybody listening, in particular our youth, though, to understand why this woman continues to be so important in our community. Artemisia Bowden was born in Georgia in 1879 to parents who were formerly enslaved. She graduated in 1900 from St. Augustine's Normal School in North Carolina and taught for 2 years in the state before moving to San Antonio in 1902 to take over as principal of St. Philip's Day School. When Bowden arrived, the day school primarily taught sewing to young African-American girls. Shortly after arriving, Bowden renamed it to St. Philip's Industrial School for Girls. In 1927, under Bowden's leadership, and after gaining private junior college status in 1926, the school became St. Philip's Junior College. Bowden served at the school until her retirement in 1954. She carried the college through the Great Depression, and later in 1954 saw the San Antonio Union Junior College Board hear and subsequently deny a petition from St. Philip's to integrate campuses and allow African American students to enroll in San Antonio College. The following year, the board relented. African American students were admitted to San Antonio College, and white students were admitted to St. Philip's. The college is the only historically Black college or university in San Antonio. So a proud legacy of history, a strong Black woman that has done so much. I encourage you to learn more about how important that woman continues to be, certainly not only for our community, in particular on the east side. And if you haven't been to it, you gotta go to Dr. Lawston's high tea for her each year. Okay, all right. We don't have any personal points of privilege, correct? Okay, good. Is there any objection to taking the consent agenda before the individual items so that we may clear the business for the day? Great. Items 7 through 15 are on the consent agenda. This means they will be considered as a group, and there will not be a staff presentation unless pulled for individual consideration. Okay. None? Okay. Are there any items council members would like to pull from the consent agenda to be heard individually? Okay. Okay. Hearing none, we have several members of the community that have signed up to speak on the consent agenda. Items 4 and 5, if you signed up to speak on those individually, you will speak once because we're going to vote on them once. So, and we've noted that in the when I call you up. Okay. Excuse me? Okay, we have Jack Finger. You have 3 minutes, sir, to speak on the consent agenda item.
Madam Mayor, other members of our illustrious San Antonio City Council, for the record, my name is Jack M. Finger. A few items I wish to bring to your attention on this portion of the agenda. Item number 13 is about settlement of a personal injury lawsuit that deals with the fact that a policewoman collided with a civilian's car and caused about $149,000 in injuries and damage and so forth. My question is always, do the employees who cause these problems, do they ever get reprimanded in any possible manner? I mean, we the citizens would like to know if that ever happens, because if you continue to let these city employees keep driving around and continuing to cause accidents, does anybody ever get spanked on these things? Yeah, we have a real problem with that. Also, item number 11. Well, let's, Mr. Audio Vision, put up item number 11 on the ejector. Let's see. Approving the appointment of Eric Alva to the Ethics Review Board for the remainder of term of office to expire April 25th, 2027. Return the camera if you would. The Ethics Review Board. I looked up the definition of ethics. It says, the dictionary says it's a system of moral principles. I don't know if anyone realized it, but Mr. Alva, decorated Marine because he was injured in the war, had his leg amputated and so forth. Unfortunately, Mr. Alva has been an advocate for the homosexual agenda. Yeah, admits that he's a member of the homosexual community. And by definition, that means you engage in homosexual acts. You know, we have real problems with a person who engages in homosexual acts being a part of an ethics committee.
Okay. We're not going to tolerate hate speech here. Your time is up. Thank you.
Yeah, well, very good,
Your time is up.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
No, Madam Mayor, we still don't want it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Security. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
What did you say? Yeah. Did you get them? Okay, we have several highlights on the consent agenda. Councilman Munguia.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to highlight item number 12. It's my pleasure to recognize Logan Martinez for his appointment to the City of San Antonio's Higher Education Student Advisory Board. Logan isn't just a dedicated student, he's actually a valued member of our District 4 family as a part-time staff member. His dual perspective, serving our community by day and navigating local higher education by night, makes him ideal voice to bridge the gap between City Hall and the next generation of San Antonio leaders. And he's a proud student and works a lot with Palo Alto College, so I'm very proud to appoint him today. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Castillo.
Mayor, this morning I would like to highlight item 9. I'm grateful for this grant on its 10-year target for targeting truancy prevention in our youth. There's a number of reasons why San Antonio missed youth, and given the current climate, what we're hearing from our independent school districts, it's primarily due to concerns around mixed family status. So we're seeing schools having to dissolve many of their bilingual education programs. However, for other students who find themselves outside of the classroom for a number of reasons, this grant is going to help ensure that 4 caseworkers and 1 supervisor work to address truancy and chronic absenteeism in San Antonio. Some youth do need this special push to get to the finish line, and seeing that maybe some of their families are scared, as I mentioned, of immigration, or others feel that they should focus on working versus focus on getting their studies. As always, I'm grateful for the work of Judge Obledo and her team for their truancy programming, where they bring in youth and their families all throughout the city of San Antonio and get connected to a wide range of resources that improve the quality of life for all of their families, including access to ready-to-work programming, having housing services, and many nonprofits there that help improve the overall quality of life at home for our families. So just grateful for Judge Obledo again and the municipal courts team. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Mesa Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to highlight item 7. This is an ordinance approving a construction contract with Easy Belt Construction for Babcock Road. This is a 2022 bond project in District 8 that includes reconstructing and widening of Babcock, along with new turn lanes, sidewalks, driveway approaches, pedestrian lighting along the park path, and much more. As we know, the UTSA area is continuing to grow rapidly, and it is my hope that this construction will help make the area safer and more convenient and enjoyable. Also hope that phase 3 of this project makes the list for the 2027 bond, for anybody that's listening. I have high expectations of the work they will complete and have no doubt they will meet these expectations. I want to sincerely thank the residents who took the time to vote on this project and make their voices heard. Your engagement and trust in this process truly matter, and I'm grateful for your commitment to the safety and future of our community. As we talk about community engagement, just want to remind District 8 residents of our SAWS Town Hall tonight at the San Antonio Board of Realtors headquarters starting at 6 p.m. Also just want to fully support this project, excited about what this will bring for safer spaces, stronger infrastructure, and a city better prepared and a district better prepared for what comes ahead of us. Thank you.
Great. Any others? Okay, Councilman Mejia Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. I was planning to highlight item 9. I believe Councilmember Castillo just highlighted it, but I do want to shout out the municipal courts team. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. I'd also, Mayor, if I may, would love to shout you out for the appointment of Eric Alva. And if I may, I'd love to address Mr. Finger. You know, you come up here several times a month, and we laugh and we giggle about some of the things that you say that are really hateful in nature. And I want you to know that sometimes when people have become figures that are routine at City Council, you know, the day that they pass, we remember them and we think about all the great times that we had up here. And when you pass, I don't think that'll be happening. I think we'll remember every single hateful thing that you said, every person that you hurt, and that'll be your legacy. Thank you, Mayor.
I'm proud to appoint Staff Sergeant Eric Fidelis Alva, retired Marine Corps, as my appointee to the Ethics Committee. Excuse me. Alva is a native of San Antonio. He grew up in a military family, hence a middle name like Fidelis. And he joined the Marine Corps in 1990 at the age of 19. When he joined, when I joined, knew we could not be open about our sexuality. So our country was fine with us dying for our country, but we couldn't be open about who we were. Staff Sergeant Fidelis was the first Marine seriously injured in the Iraq War. And he has been instrumental in his service. He was instrumental in leading the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He continues to this day to give back as an adjunct professor at the University of Texas, San Antonio, and I'm very proud to appoint him, and I congratulate him and his husband, Danny Ingram, also a veteran, on their continued service to our community. There being no further discussion, there's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. The motion passes. Items 4 and 5 will be presented and discussed together. Madam Clerk, please read the captions for these items.
Item 4 is a resolution providing the City of San Antonio's consent to the creation by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, TCEQ, of a municipal utility district MUD to be named the Bexar County MUD Number 2, generally located northwest of the intersection of Scenic Loop and Babcock Road in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of San Antonio, Bexar County. Item number 4 is an ordinance approving a development agreement between the City of San Antonio and Guajolote Ranch, Inc. and Sidney and Marcy Edwards, landowners of approximately 1,159.87 acres of land generally located northwest of the intersection of Scenic Loop and Babcock Road in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of San Antonio, Bexar County, Texas.
Staff, please proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Bridget White, Director of the Planning Department. As noted, items 4 and 5 on today's agenda are for City Council's consideration of first, consent to the creation of municipal utility district to be created by Texas Commission of Environmental Quality, and second, approval of an associated development agreement. The site in question is in northwest Bexar County in the City of San Antonio's extraterritorial jurisdiction, or ETJ, near the intersection of Scenic Loop Road and Babcock Road. The site is approximately 1,160 acres, and the owners are Guajolote Ranch Incorporated and Sidney and Marcy Edwards. Lennar Homes of Texas plans to develop the site. The developer is requesting a municipal utility district, or MUD, to be named Bexar County MUD Number 2 in order to finance development of a 3,000 single-family residential development. The site is within San Antonio's Water System's Water Certificate of Convenience and Necessity, or CCN, and not currently within any entity's CCN for sewer. Proposed improvements include on-site and off-site improvements, such as individual lot improvements, streets, utilities, drainage, and grading, an off-site drainage extension to Scenic Loop Road, and the construction and operation of an on-site wastewater treatment plant. The developer will preserve approximately 580 acres, or 50% of the project area as open space. Costs are estimated to be approximately $150 million, with revenue anticipated to be $106.5 million. Municipal utility districts operate on a reimbursement model, and the developer could recover infrastructure costs through ad valorem taxes, assessments, and the issuance of bonds for the on-site and off-site improvements proposed. The Texas Water Code, specifically Chapters 49 and 54, pertain to water districts and provide regulations on what is required for the creation of these districts. As required, the developer submitted a petition to the city on November 10, 2025, for the city's consent to the creation of a municipal utility district with the MUD to be created by TCQ. A MUD petition has a 90-day requirement from its receipt for the city to consider the request. Today, February 5th, is the 87th day of the 90-day clock. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner of this slide, the Planning Commission was briefed on this request on December 17th, 2025, and held a hearing on January 16th of this year. At that hearing, the item before them was to make a recommendation to City Council on whether or not to consent to the creation of the MUD with an executed development agreement. A motion to deny passed 5-4. In regard to Council's action today, as you can see from the top line, if City Council chooses to approve consenting to the creation of the MUD, the item would then go to TCQ for the developer to go through the process of creating the district. If, however, City Council chooses to deny its consent to the creation of the MUD or take no action, the developer can then move to file a petition for wastewater services with the city and negotiate an agreement with SAWS. A petition received would start a 120-day clock for an agreement to be negotiated. If no agreement is reached between SAWS and the developer within 120 days, the developer can proceed to TCQ for them to consider creating a district. If, however, an agreement is reached between SAWS and the developer to provide wastewater services, the developer can proceed with development. It should be noted that it would not prevent them from submitting a petition for a special district for funding the improvements to be made in the district. At the January 22nd briefing to Council, there was a question asked of how many instances TCEQ had approved a MUD request after denial by a municipality. Based on conversation with TCEQ, they indicated that they do not collect that type of information as to how many they approve that may have been denied by a municipality. But they did indicate that in about the last 20 years, only one request had been denied because of an issue with the application itself. There is also a question on whether TCEQ incorporates a municipality's development agreement terms into their approval, and the answer to that question was that they did not. As Council is aware, several concerns have been raised regarding the project, notably the on-site water treatment plant, its location over the contributing zone of the Edwards Aquifer, and conservation issues. As far as actions taken to date, SAWS approved the utility service agreement for water with conditions related to sewer in February 2022. The master development plan was approved by both Bexar County and the City of San Antonio in February 2023 and March 2023, respectively. The wastewater permit was approved by TCEQ in October 2025, and SAWS provided responses to environmental questions raised and brought forward via a City Council consideration request in October and November 2025. In accordance with Section 212.172 of the Local Government Code, the City negotiates a development agreement with all special district requests for consent to creation. The development agreement serves as a contractual agreement between the City and the current as well as future owners of the property. The development agreement is filed with the county and runs with the land. The items noted on this slide are terms that would be included in a signed development agreement for Bexar County MUD number 2. They include the city's development-related terms typically found in development agreements for special districts, as well as water quality protection terms because of the unique nature of this project given its location. The water quality protection terms are from the SAWS Water Utility Service Agreement from February 2022 and the settlement agreement from December 2024. I will go into those in more detail in the next 2 slides. 2 additional water quality protection terms in the development agreement that are not in either of those 2 are 1, SAWS review of plans for construction and as-built documents containing the seal of professional engineer, and 2, SAWS ability to inspect the facility at its discretion upon reasonable prior notice to the developer. As far as development includes items such as 1, which subdivision regulations apply in the ETJ that the developer will comply with, such as the tree ordinance, water quality protection ordinance, irrigation permitting, street connectivity, and signs. 2, noting that the owner will agree to provide increased road network access points for single-family residential subdivisions which are located within fire and flood-prone areas. 3, language pertaining to the district's debt, including a cap on the district's bond issuance of $150 million, the timing on when the last bonds can be issued, and the ability for the city to charge customers within the district a post-annexation surcharge as permitted by the Texas Water Code to compensate for its assumption of obligations of the district if the city were to choose to annex at a future date. 4, the current and future owners agreeing to voluntary annexation if a future city council chooses to annex the district at the end of the term of the development agreement. 5, a third-party conservation easement holder. And 6, applicable application provisions and fees, such as the owners providing annual updates to the city on the progress of the development and paying the city an operations assessment fee of $175 per built residential unit for a total of $525,000. The 9 conditions agreed to with the SAWS Water USA are noted here. 2 pertain more to development of the land, with the other 7 related to water quality protection. Conditions include, but are not limited to, setting aside 50% of the project as open space, a 30% impervious cover restriction. The discharge permit can only serve the 1,160-acre property. The plant will be operated and maintained by an A-level wastewater operator, and soil supplementation to allow for adequate soil absorption. From the 2024 settlement agreement, there are 10 conditions, including but not limited to the plant being operated and maintained by an A-level wastewater operator, the type of conditions that need to be met and where the reused water can be used, complying with SAWS's backflow prevention requirement, soil requirements, monitoring of the wastewater treatment plant and lift stations, providing 24-hour answering services as well as on-call staff, GPS monitoring equipment for expedited response times, on-site personnel for adequate notification purposes, and design and construction of wet wells to contain peak design flow. For City Council's consideration today is item number 4, consent to the creation of the Bexar County Municipal Utility District Number 2, in which council can approve, deny, or take no action. And item number 5, approval of a development agreement. At the January 22nd briefing, there was a question as to which development agreement conditions would remain and if the MUD request and development agreement were not approved. What would remain would be 1, the 9 conditions approved with the SAWS Water USA in February 2022, the two conditions contained in the settlement agreement from December 2024, and 3, if the developer would still have to comply with the subdivision regulations applicable to the ETJ, such as the tree ordinance, street connectivity, and signs. These 3 items are what are noted on slide 7, the first bullet and the 2 associated sub-bullets under water quality protection and the first bullet under development. Items such as the following would go away. The developer providing SAWS all plans for construction and as-built documents containing the seal of a professional engineer. 2, the developer allowing SAWS to inspect at its discretion upon reasonable prior notice to the developer. 3, increased requirements such as the road network access points, also noted on slide 7, as well as the military protection area-related lighting and sound standards the developer would have had to comply with because the site is within 5 miles of the Camp Bullis military installation. 4, language related to the debt's cap, district's debt, including cap on the bond issuance, the timing of the bonds, and the post-annexation surcharge. 5, the current and future owners agreeing to voluntary annexation. 6, the open space to be reserved as a conservation easement and conveyed to a third-party easement holder. 7, the applicable provisions and fees, such as the annual reports and the one-time assessment fee. And as I mentioned earlier, the 8, the agreement running with the land, thus binding any successors, and also any pre-approved language that must be included in every deed, informing buyers of the district, its ability to tax, and potential future annexation by the city. Finally, with special district requests, staff will typically have a signed development agreement when the item is presented to City Council for consideration. However, as of this morning, the developer has not signed the development agreement and has indicated that they will not be signing. Mayor, this concludes my presentation on items 4 and 5. City and SAWS staff are available to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. And just a point of clarification before we go on to the public, and in case it informs their comments. The items on slide 8, 9, and 10, are all coming to the city, irrespective of whether or not we approve the MUD, right? Just the items on 8, 9, and 10.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to those that have signed up to speak from the public. Okay, I'll call individuals up in the order that they signed up. All individuals will have 3 minutes. Groups of 3 will have a total of 9 minutes. And I'll call several folks up, so you can please line up so we can get through this efficiently. Susan Bevan, followed by Kate Hall Feist, followed by Lisa Pack.
Good morning. Susan Bevan, and I'm giving my time to Stuart Birnbaum, who will follow.
Let's find him. It's number 8, okay. Okay, you have 6 minutes, thank you.
I'm just taking 3 minutes. I'm not Stuart. Sorry.
All right, so Susan Bevan, so go ahead, and if you're giving it to Stuart and Stuart's here, then Stuart, you have 6 minutes right now, sir. Thank you.
We sort of have an organized delivery, so if it's okay, I'll start. I'm Catherine
Sorry,
Feist.
say that again. Hold on 1 second. Okay, we'll go down the list then as people have signed up. Okay, so Kate Hall Feist,
Yeah.
is she available?
That's me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you to the San Antonio City Council and Mayor Ortiz Jones for allowing your neighbors to the north, the Scenic Loop Helotes Creek Alliance, this second opportunity for public comments on the proposed mud for the Wahalote Ranch project. As you know, more than 50 people spoke against the mud at the Planning Commission meeting. Councilman Munguia, you were there, you heard everything. That was followed by another 18 speakers right here at the last City Council meeting. Today, we're only going to focus on those issues that continue to raise alarming questions. To be clear, the Scenic Loop Helotes Creek Alliance is not rejecting all MUDs as a funding tool. A MUD can be appropriate when it aligns with city planning goals, when it protects public resources, and when it poses no unacceptable threat to the environment, especially when we're talking about our most treasured resource. Our concern is specific to this mud on this tract of land. Helotes Creek watershed is extraordinarily sensitive, and we cannot ignore that fact. Additionally, there are unresolved legal and scientific issues surrounding the wastewater permit, which is currently under judicial appeal in Travis County. This appeal identifies 10 significant errors in TCEQ's approval of the permit, which can be found on our website, scenicloop.org. Before we move on into a deeper dive into the science regarding the Wahalote Ranch and the proposed wastewater treatment plant, we would like to thank Councilwoman Alderete Gavito and Councilwoman Meza Gonzalez for introducing a CCR that raised questions about the science behind this issue. We would also like to thank Mayor Ortiz Jones for her specific inquiries regarding the report from the Southwest Research Institute. Clarifying the science is key to understanding why a no vote on this mud is critical to protecting the drinking water source for 2.5 million people, and most importantly, their health. Thank you so much.
Okay. Lisa Pack, followed by Mark D'Orazio.
Good morning, Council and Mayor. I'm donating my time to Jane Sams and Lynette Munson. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, great. Okay. Then whoever is speaking will have 9 minutes. Come on, man. Okay. May I ask who's speaking? Go ahead. No, go ahead. You.
Okay, good morning.
Morning.
Or good morning, Mayor, and good.
I'm sorry. You have slides? They have slides?
I do.
Okay. Is
Okay,
it, may I ask who's speaking? Is it Jane Sams?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Jane Sams, and this is my niece, Lynette Munson. And thank you for allowing us to take your time today to speak to you this morning. Lynette and I live on the Sams Ranch family that has been in our family for over 140 years and is adjacent to the Wahalote Ranch. The efflux will leave that property and immediately enter the Sams Ranch, or as we call it, ground zero. We all rely on private wells as our water source. Clean water is so important to not only us at ground zero, but over the 2.5 million other people that rely on good, healthy water. First, let me thank the council members that toured our property and participated in our demonstration. As you saw in the area by the main headwater, there were tons of holy rocks. I believe a few of you that came out might have taken one or two home for your family members to look at, which I appreciate y'all taking something from our property to remember us by. And you clearly saw how fast the water ran through the holes of the karst rock. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. Our land, as well as the Wahalote Ranch, sits in one of the largest geological areas in our state. To understand karst, think of holes are a lot of Swiss cheese, that the water is just going through it immediately, not waiting to go, but it's going down immediately. And if you've been to the hill country, that you've seen a lot of holy rocks, and they are a key part to what makes the hill country unique. Karst refers to either features or terrain formed by dissolution, making them full of holes and fractures. It also leads to underground drainage systems where surface water and groundwater systems are linked through the karst features. And rain provides recharge to the groundwater supply that will wash contaminants from the surface into the groundwater system below. Karst landscape, such as ours, which my niece will show you from her slides, that it is sensitive to our development, which underscores the need for good stewardship and innovation to protect our water supplies. A quarter of the world's population depends upon water supplied from the karst area. Well over 2.5 million people rely on water from the Edwards and the Trinity aquifers in central Texas, and that water needs to be protected for all of us that rely on water from whatever aquifer zone you are in. But please protect the Edwards and the Trinity. Thank you. Next slide, and this is my niece.
Good morning. As Jane mentioned, a few of you visited and saw what our land looks like. You saw the karst rocks laying in the creek beds and how quickly the water went through it. But I want to show you what my backyard looks like. What you see here is what the rest of the land looks like. As you can see, the karst rocks is not only underground, but they protrude to the surface. What you see on the top goes all the way down. So just think about when you poured that bottle of water on that rock and what happens. It went straight through. Well, that's what happens when it rains on our land. It goes straight through into those rocks. There is no filtering, there is no layering. Those little holes don't have filters in them to stop contaminants. I've literally fought these rocks for 30 years. I've scraped them, I've picked them up, I've crushed them. I've even had a bobcat come out, and every time I would pull up a big holy rock, there was another holy rock right underneath it. And guess what? With a little rain, that soil starts to erode again. So every time I pick up a rock or crush a rock, it rains a little, and the next thing you know, all of my holy rocks are back on the surface. So when I hear concessions such as they're going to put 4 inches of soil down, I'm here to tell you that 4 inches isn't going to do anything. It's going to get into that karst rock, and it's going into our drinking water. And as soon as they put the 4 inches of soil down, it's going to quickly erode, like I see it happen all the time in my backyard. What are they going to keep doing? Keep putting soil down? It won't stay. Trust me, I've tried. I wish it would. It will not stay. And who's going to ensure that they abide by these concessions? So while I understand they've made some promises, those promises carry little value or little comfort for us. They won't keep those contaminants from reaching our well water or any of the other communities drinking water that rely on our aquifers. So why is contamination of any groundwater acceptable? Why is an out-of-state developer not being checked to ensure that they don't impact our environment? Next slide, please. The headwaters of Helotes Creek sits on our property. Even in the worst drought conditions, our springs have opened twice, July of 24 and May of 25, with just as little as 4 inches of rain. The fact is, as science predict, when our springs are flowing within hours, a day at the most, of these rains. And you can take a look at these pictures. When those springs open today, we have clean, clear water coming out. Now, if there's water coming out of them, and we release any type of effluent into that creek, it's going to go down into those same holes that clean water is coming out of. So all of that nasty water with PFOS and PFAS and all the other stuff are going straight down into those holes. And we also know, due to the fact that it's a karst environment, those springs will be polluted anytime they open up if we don't prevent this mud. The water will be tainted forever. We cannot clean it up. Our family and many others depend on clean water from the ground for drinking, for recreation, for wildlife, exotic game, for domestic livestock that we have out there. No number of promises will stop it from being impacted. It is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Next slide, please. Our family has pledged for over 140 years to be good stewards, and we will continue our stewardship of this land that our forefather was so passionate about and so proud of. Will you please help us by voting no to the Wahalote mud and protecting the 2.5 million people who rely on the aquifer below this land to have clean and safe drinking water? We thank you for your time and listening to our concerns.
Thank you.
Mark DeRazio.
Thank you, Mayor, Council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Mark DeRazio, and I'm the state representative for House District 122, where this mud would be located. Let me start off by saying that I've been working with my constituents for almost 3 years on this issue. I've spoken to hundreds maybe thousands of people on this issue. They're stay-at-home moms, businessmen, doctors, retirees, and even a geologist or two and a medical doctor. They are Democrats, Republicans, and independents. I've never once heard anyone say they wanted this mud or really anything to do with a Wahalote ranch. San Antonio has been my home. I've been involved in politics in my community for about 38 years. I have never once, not once, seen an issue that has united people like that, like this one. It's brought together progressive environmentalists, limited government champions in a way that I didn't think was possible a couple of years ago. I was elected to represent the people of House District 122, so let me say it again. Acres of the Edwards Aquifer. 15% of that is recharged in this area. That's 140 square miles. Please stand with me to oppose this mud. No one wants it, and everyone will pay for it. I'm Mark DeRazio, and I'm a state representative for House District 122.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nettie Birnbaum. Nettie Birnbaum. Okay. Steve Lee. Steve Lee, followed by Stuart Birnbaum and Philip Manna. Yeah, so we're calling folks based on how you signed up. So, I've got Steve Lee. Steve Lee, Stuart Birnbaum, and then Philip Manna. Thank you.
I'm going to have two people give time, and they're coming up right now.
What are their names, sir?
My name is Karen Leidner, and I am giving my time
24.
to Steve Lee.
Okay. And who's the other person, sir?
Good morning. I am Michael Phillips. I am donating my time to Mr. Steve Lee.
Michael Phillips, is that right? Oh, okay.
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, you have 9 minutes, sir. Thanks.
Very good. Well, good morning, and thank you again for this privilege to address you once again. Excuse me. My name is Steve Lee, and we live outside Gray Forest on land that's been in my family for more than 160 years. My family and I rely on a Trinity well for our water supply. For the benefit of all here today, I would like to highlight some of the critical observations from letters that Drs. Ronald Green and Drs. George Vinnie sent to each of you. Dr. Green's letter, he soundly refutes Saw's claims that the 9 so-called controls it negotiated for Lennar, or with Lennar for Guadalupe Ranch for wastewater treatment as part of a water services agreement will make this project safe. He says that even with the stated conditions, effluent from Lennar's wastewater treatment plant could reach either private wells or public supply wells in days or weeks. And he repeatedly characterizes public assertions by Saws as simplistic or not correct and lacking any scientific citations. In contrast, Dr. Green's letter includes numerous study citations and exhibits throughout, and a listing of 37 references at the end. He writes, even with the controls, the dominant factor will remain the total mass load of effluent released to the environment. This is because the limited soil, karst, limestone, and rolling terrain of the hill country provide minimal retardation to water applied to the land surface, whether by precipitation or land application. The characteristics of the hill country in the Guadalupe Tract will remain dominant even with the 9 controls. His letter is in response to an October 10th letter from Saws to Councilwoman Marina Aldrete Gavito, who sought Saws' position on the issue, as well as to other recent public comments. Central to Saws' claims is that the Haby Crossing Fault, which crosses the area, prevents flow from the Trinity Aquifer to the Edwards Aquifer. But Dr. Green cites studies showing multiple faults comprising the offset between the 2 aquifers, many producing pathways to flow. Both the Southwest Research Study and another one by the U.S. Geological Survey characterizes the Haby Crossing Fault as a conduit rather than a barrier to flow, Dr. Green's letter says. What is not explained in the Saws letter, he says, is that if the groundwater is not going from the higher Trinity Aquifer to the lower Edwards Aquifer, where's it going? He also calls indefensible Saws' view that the 2 aquifers don't communicate because samples from just 2 wells, one on each side of the fault, have different water chemistry, when there have been hundreds, if not thousands, of samples from wells in published research. He notes that dye tracer studies by the Edwards Aquifer Authority further confirms the hydraulic relationship between the Trinity and the Edwards aquifers, with travel times of the dye in groundwater of approximately 1 mile per day. And he disputes Saul's claim that the distance from the proposed Guajolote Ranch wastewater treatment plant to the Edwards Aquifer would be far enough for the effluent to quote-unquote naturally attenuate. Dr. Green says that pathogens like bacteria and viruses can persist in groundwater for weeks and months, and that karst aquifers like the Trinity and Edwards are particularly vulnerable to degradation because of rapid groundwater speeds and short travel times. He says that with a groundwater velocity of 1 mile per day, effluent discharge at Guajolote Ranch could reach the Edwards Aquifer in less than a week. And even Saul's Tipica Street well on the west side of San Antonio, 14 miles away, in 2 weeks. That well already has been contaminated, by the way. He notes a study showing that pathogens in effluent applied to a field over similar karst geology in Canada seeped into a public water supply, killing 7 people and making 2,300 others critically ill. Dr. Vinny also was compelled to write you because of Saul's October 10th letter, which he says contains technical information that is limited, out of date, and flawed. Excuse me. He says that Saul's view ignores substantial and direct evidence from a groundwater tracing program that he himself conducted and was reviewed and published by the Edwards Aquifer Authority. Excuse me. We injected non-toxic dyes into the Trinity Glen Rose and discovered them in the Edwards Aquifer wells, he says, crossing as many as 7 faults that digital groundwater models and some researchers previously believed were barriers to groundwater flow, he writes. He also notes that the 30% impervious cover standard in the 9 conditions is not scientific. Research shows water quality declines sharply once a watershed exceeds roughly 15% impervious cover. And yet, despite all this, excuse me, and yet, despite all this overwhelming evidence provided by Drs. Green and Vinny in their letters, Saul's last night on KSAT continued to peddle its inaccuracies, claiming rigorous studies. It is fair to ask, where are those studies? And as Saul's already is signaling a rate hike increase for water users, it could cost them and ratepayers billions more dollars to remediate pollution from this project. No, the scientific consensus is clear on this. When the city needed answers about the Helotes Creek watershed, you hired the Southwest Research Institute, the same institution trusted by NASA, the Department of Defense, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Their conclusion was unequivocal. Any additional wastewater systems from residential development in this watershed will significantly degrade water quality. And now, 2 of the most respected aquifer scientists in the world, and by extension, all the other scientists they've cited, have warned you that this project threatens our water supply. These are not activists. They are not lobbyists. They are the people you would call if your life depended on the answer, because in this case, it does. The stakes could not be higher. Mayor Paul Garrell of Gray Forest said it plainly 2 weeks ago. Cities do not get to make mistakes with their water, not twice, not ever. Flint, Michigan was told the science is fine, and the models say it will be okay. They trusted the wrong voices. The consequences will last generations. Flint is not an outlier. Flint is a warning. You have the clearest scientific warning imaginable from the very experts the city and in some cases the world have relied upon for decades. My family has relied upon the sanctity of the aquifer for more than 160 years. It is irreplaceable. Once contaminated, it cannot be undone. I urge you to vote no on a MUD for Guajolote Ranch.
Stuart Birnbaum.
Philip Manna, Alamo Farmsteads. I'm going
Hold
to
on
cede.
1 second. Stuart Birnbaum is who I've got on my list.
So Philip Manna first? Yes.
Nope, it's Stuart Birnbaum. And then Philip Manna. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nettie Birnbaum. I'm giving my time to Stuart Birnbaum.
Okay, 6 minutes, sir. Thank you.
And
I'd
like to remind you.
Hold on. What is it? Yep, 9 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll have a couple of slides. That one first. Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council members, for allowing me this opportunity to address you regarding the MUD application before you today. My name is Stuart Birnbaum. I live in Helotes, and I am asking you to reject the MUD application to develop Guajolote Ranch. I'm a geoscientist with a doctoral degree in geology, and I'm an emeritus associate professor in the Department of Earth and Planetary Sciences at UT San Antonio. I am also on the board of the Trinity Glen Rose Groundwater Conservation District, in whose jurisdiction Guajolote Ranch lies. I preface my comments by saying these comments are mine alone. I do not represent UT San Antonio nor the Groundwater Conservation District. When I had the privilege of speaking to you on January 22nd, I presented an extremely rapid overview of the current state of scientific knowledge regarding the nature of the Helotes Creek watershed and the hydrologic connection between Trinity Glen Rose and Edwards aquifers. Since then, you have received letters from two highly respected hydrogeologists with a combined 80 years' experience studying the Trinity and Edwards aquifers. I believe you also just recently received a third letter from another expert with vast experience in the Helotes Creek watershed, Gary Schindel, corroborating the letters of Drs. Green and Vinnie. The letter from Dr. George Vinnie provides evidence of direct hydrologic communication between the aquifers. Dr. Vinnie recently retired as the executive director of congressionally created National Cave and Karst Research Institute in New Mexico, and he's the author of the authoritative book, Caves of Bear County, Texas. Vinnie earned his undergraduate degree at UTSA, was a colleague of mine when he taught at UTSA, and considers San Antonio his home. In that letter, Dr. Vinnie states that in the past, he would have perhaps at least partially agreed with the SAW's statement regarding the confining nature of the Camp Bullis rock layer. However, as is the case with all good scientists, when new data presents itself, interpretations change. In describing his research at Natural Bridge Caverns, Dr. Vinnie states, and I quote, "The Camp Bullis unit transmits great volumes of groundwater from the Glen Rose to the Edwards limestone portion of the Edwards aquifer. The Camp Bullis unit is not the confining unit SAWS believes it to be." The second of these letters is from Dr. Ronald Green, a senior author of the 2020 Southwest Research Institute study that is so critical in this debate, showing that the development, like Guajolote Ranch, would degrade the Edwards aquifer. Although Dr. Green is now retired from Southwest Research and clearly states he is not representing the institution, we may safely accept his authority on the science provided in that report. In his expansive 22-page letter, Dr. Green delineates the current state of knowledge of the Helotes Creek watershed and explains with multiple references cited from peer-reviewed scientific literature that SAW's representation of the Haybee Crossing Fault is incorrect in presenting an overly simplified and grossly inaccurate interpretation of the current understanding of the Trinity-Edwards relationship. Let me show you two depictions of the Trinity, of the faulting across the Trinity and Edwards. So here we have an image that was provided by SAWS without attribution or citation that shows a simplistic and out-of-date interpretation. And you'll notice that they have the Haybee Crossing Fault as a barrier fault. The next image is from a 2010 peer-reviewed publication based upon tracer studies that reveal the complex details across a fault that connects the Trinity and Edwards aquifer. And I'd like to point out that Gary Schindel and George Vinnie were authors of this particular paper. I've highlighted wells in yellow and caves in blue for easy identification. And here I would be pointing, but you have an operator. The gray colors represent the Glen Rose, while the blues and pinks represent the Edwards. Tracer dyes were added to caves in the Edwards, and those traces appeared in Glen Rose wells and then again in Edwards wells. The blue arrows show the flow from the Glen Rose aquifer into the Edwards aquifer across numerous faults. This peer-reviewed research reveals that the two aquifers behave as a single, interconnected hydrologic system. The science is clear and is clearly being ignored. I do not understand why SAWS persists in perpetuating old and largely refuted science. Perhaps it is convenient to use a one-size-fits-all approach to aquifer management. This is both dangerous and a potentially costly error if the Edwards becomes unnecessarily contaminated. I would like to provide an analogy based upon a personal life-altering experience. I retired from UTSA for medical reasons, having been diagnosed with cancer in 2007. I stand before you today because advances in medical science were utilized and a new targeted gene therapy saved my life. In contrast, I get the feeling that if the SAWS approach to science were implemented, it would be analogous to a patient with migraines having a hole drilled in their head to allow the evil spirits to escape. 2 weeks ago, there was discussion of whether Southwest Research planned a follow-up study since 5 years had passed. Dr. Green said in his letter that he reviewed all available and relevant technical reports and peer-reviewed journal articles on the Edwards and Trinity's aquifers for a text he was preparing, and indicates that he has not run across anything new since the Southwest report. And he states, like any scientific evaluation, my conclusions may change if and when contradictory evidence or data become available. Neither are provided in the Puente letter, end quote. I'd further note that SAWS reached its negotiated agreement with Lennar 3 to 4 years ago, no doubt informed by the same erroneous information it continues to rely upon today. Clearly, SAWS has not updated its environmental assessment. As science advances, management policy should take heed and adapt. I'll close by reminding you that when I was last here, I promised you a quiz. Your vote today is that quiz, and it is pass-fail. There is no partial credit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Philip Manna. Philip Manna, you'll be followed by Austin Browning.
So Philip Manna, Alma Farmsteads, and I'm going to cede my time to Randy, and please vote no.
Randy Newman.
My name is Austin Brown, and I'll give my time to Randy Newman.
Thank you. Mr. Newman, you'll have 9 minutes.
Mayor and council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Randy Newman, Chair of the Steering Committee of the Scenic Loop Helotes Creek Alliance. I'm here today representing thousands of residents who are united in one message. We do not want the Wahalote wastewater plant built, and we expect our city to defend the water that sustains 2.5 million Texans. This is not a philosophical debate. It is a legal, scientific, and moral one. The law is not optional, and the law is on the side of protecting water. The Texas Water Code provides clear, enforceable protections. 26.003 requires the protection of water quality. 11.086 prohibits harming downstream properties. 26.121 forbids unlawful or improperly permitted discharges. And 54.016 gives the city full authority to deny a MUD when it is not feasible, practical, or in the public interest. The Wahalote permit is under judicial challenge, as you've heard, for 10 alleged errors, including failure to apply anti-degradation standards and reliance on flawed dissolved oxygen model. If the permit is remanded or vacated, any discharge from a MUD-financed plant would be unlawful. The law is clear, the protections are clear, and the city's authority to say no is clear. Approving a MUD now is premature, dangerous, and unnecessary. If the court overturns the permit, the city will have approved a MUD whose core infrastructure cannot legally operate. That exposes the city and the taxpayers to avoidable legal, financial, and environmental liability. It would be imprudent to approve a financing mechanism for infrastructure that may be illegal to use. A no vote preserves the city's leverage and reflects the will of the citizens of San Antonio. A no vote triggers a 120-day negotiating period, after which the developer can seek TCEQ approval. But during that 120-day time, the city can require a binding development agreement, establish enforceable environmental protections, define infrastructure obligations, and ensure alignment with long-term planning goals. A no vote keeps the city in control. A yes vote hands authority to a developer-controlled taxing entity in one of the most sensitive recharge zones in Texas. This is not a procedural choice. It is a choice about who governs growth in San Antonio, the elected city council or a private developer acting in its own interest. As you've heard, the science is unequivocal. The Wahalote threatens the drinking water of 2.5 million Texans. Think about this with me for a moment. If SAWS were to withdraw, as its user service agreement allows, and not provide water to the Wahalote Ranch, the likely fallback is a Trinity Aquifer well, drilled directly beneath the same fractured karst of the Balcones Fault Zone, where they plan to discharge 1 million gallons of sewer effluent every single day. That means the contamination they are willing to impose on 2.5 million Texans becomes the contamination they would have to drink themselves. And then comes the unavoidable question: who buys a home where the tap water may be flavored with its own wastewater? Cancer-causing PFAS, pharmaceuticals, illegal drugs, and heavy metals. What realtor wants to explain that? What family wants to risk that? The harm they are willing to impose on the entire region would become the harm they would have to live with themselves. That's not just irony, it's a beautiful symmetry. Lennar's plan is self-serving, not community-serving. Lennar's own attorney has already declared that the subdivision will be built, the wastewater plant is coming, and nothing the city does can stop it. That statement alone proves that the developer does not need a MUD, only that a MUD would benefit the developer by enabling high-density housing while keeping the apparent cost of homes artificially low. This is not about public need, it's about private profit. This may be the most consequential vote of your time on council. Entertainment districts come and go, bond packages come and go, even airports evolve, but nothing is more foundational to a city than clean, abundant water. No one will fault you for voting to protect the aquifer. Section plans were built to balance growth with aquifer protection, appropriate density, and safe roadway development. These plans reflect the will and the wisdom of the San Antonio community. And now, an out-of-state developer seeks to override all of it, threatening our water, disregarding our plans, endangering our citizens, and dictating what the city of San Antonio must accept. That is blatantly wrong. When environmental review becomes box checking, when legal processes are manipulated, and when citizens say, enough, it becomes the solemn duty of this council to act in the collective best interest of the people of San Antonio. Clearly, the developer does not care about San Antonio's water supply. Clearly, they do not care about the will of neighbors, the safety of the residents of the development or the community, and clearly their interests regarding both a PID and a MUD are totally self-serving. Texans do not surrender their water, their land, or their sovereignty to outside pressure. If Lennar's opening shot is that the city is powerless, then the city of San Antonio should answer with the full force of its authority and protect the water that protects us all. On behalf of thousands of residents, I respectfully ask that you vote no on the creation of this MUD. Thank you.
Judy Hall, followed by Emery Bloom. And then, would somebody confirm? Lisa Moria's Pack is the same Lisa Pack, correct? Okay. So then it's Judy Hall, Emery Bloom, and then Rachel Haynes.
Hi. I donate my time to Emery, and if you would pass these around.
You have 6 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Howdy, my name is Emery Bloom. I'm the president of Scenic Loop Helotes Creek Alliance, a registered neighborhood in the city of San Antonio, if you'll slow side one, that will overlap with this Guajolote Ranch project. We would like to extend our sincere appreciation to you, Mayor, each council member individually, and to the city manager for the time you allocated to understand the details surrounding this situation and the concerns it raises among citizens across San Antonio and Bexar County. If you would switch to the next one. Thank you. We would also like to extend our appreciation to Representative Mark DeRazio for leading the Bexar County delegation of state representatives, and to all of our Texas state senators for standing with us in opposition to this project, both in Austin at TCEQ and here locally. And there's Representative DeRazio is here with us. You heard him earlier. And also there's representatives from Senator Campbell's office here with us today. I'm going to segue into something we just learned. I want to take a moment to recognize the leadership shown this week by State Representative Ray Lopez of House District 125. Representative Lopez, one of 10 members of the bipartisan Bexar County legislative delegation who unanimously opposed the Guajolote Ranch wastewater permit, has formally requested that Representative Brooks Landgraf of Odessa, chair of House Environmental Regulation Committee in the state of Texas, initiate a study on wastewater discharge into environmentally sensitive areas like the Edwards Aquifer contributing and recharge zones. Representative Lopez emphasized that such a study would provide essential guidance for the upcoming 90th legislative session, helping lawmakers evaluate how Texas can better regulate or limit wastewater discharges that threaten water quality. It is anticipated that the full Bexar County delegation will join Representative Lopez, both in his request and in supporting any legislation that may likely result from this study. Several other legislators have also reached out to the Scenic Loop Helotes Creek Alliance, seeking information and input on these issues. We are grateful for this growing engagement, and this morning we want to publicly thank Representative Lopez for his foresight and his responsiveness to the community concerns and his commitment to protecting our shared water resources. We'd also like to thank Bexar County Commissioners and Judge who were instrumental in unanimously ensuring this project was not funded by a $138 million public improvement district. That PID request died due to a lack of support at Commissioners Court before even making it to a vote, and is the reason we are here discussing the MUD today. And to our friends in Helotes and Gray Forest, whose city councils and their mayors have repeatedly voted on record their staunch opposition to the Squaw Ranch project. My neighbors, some of whom you have heard here today, do an outstanding service to this community by selflessly donating their time and energy to provide our community leaders a wealth of fact-based, scientifically affirmed information about why you should deny this MUD request today. We don't stand here shaking a fist, we reach out with a helping hand. The opportunity moving forward lies with our constructive collaboration with you, the San Antonio City Council. And together we can work to ensure the departments and agencies that we trust to represent our community's interests align with the citizens' desires to support responsible growth that enhances quality of life and that ensures every development project contributes to a safer and stronger San Antonio for all. Council, your constituents look to you for your leadership in continuing to strive to ensure any projects as detrimental to our region as this Squaw Ranch project does not make it this far in the process in the future. Again, thank you for all your service to this community, and thank you again for voting to deny the $150 million Squaw Ranch MUD.
Rachel Haynes, followed by Louis Vetter, and then Patricia Seidenberger.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Rachel Haynes. I'm the Policy Director at the Greater Edwards Aquifer Alliance. I'm here on behalf of our 16 Bexar County member organizations to urge you to deny Lennar's request for the creation of a Guajolote Ranch Municipal District. We request that you vote to deny this application for a MUD for the following reasons. The applicants were originally informed the city was interested in discussing the purchase of a conservation easement through the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program. They apparently did not consider this option, which could have provided a lucrative and more environmentally protective alternative. The site is currently designated in the North Sector Plan as country, suitable for properties 10 acres or more. Lennar's proposal is too dense to comply. The proposed density, besides being inconsistent with current land uses, poses a real threat to San Antonio's water supplies and to neighbor well-being. The development plan for the MUD has an impervious cover limit of 30%. Given the importance of this site in recharging the Edwards and Trinity aquifers, 15% is more appropriate to reduce flooding and to preserve water quality. The city could have negotiated better terms in the settlement agreement between San Antonio, Metro Health, and Lennar, which are substantively the same as the requirements that SAWS insisted on as conditions of the Water Utility Service Agreement with Lennar. SAWS in the city should have required Lennar to pay for post-development water quality testing of private wells that might be at risk from wastewater and stormwater contamination. Adequate stormwater management plans and non-point source pollution from the development should have been addressed. The concessions outlined in the settlement agreement are vague, lacking enforceable definitions, measurable thresholds, or operational requirements. Lennar faces no clear obligations to fulfill the intent of these concessions. If this MUD is approved and the project proceeds, the city would need to constantly monitor all aspects of the project to ensure Lennar's compliance with the negotiated terms. In 2020, GIA received a $175,000 settlement from Lennar and its contractors for violating a negotiated settlement agreement and for violating the Clean Water Act at its 4S Ranch subdivision. The 4S Ranch construction site flooded a downstream neighbor's property the prior year, causing over $100,000 in damages. It is our experience that the terms of negotiated settlement agreements are not always scrupulously followed by Lennar. We agree that affordable housing is needed. We do not believe this development will provide homes that are affordable to most San Antonio families. Even if the sales prices are considered affordable, the additional property taxes to be assessed on homeowners in this MUD could equal or surpass the assessments collected by the county. There are plenty of sites in San Antonio where affordable housing could be built without threatening San Antonio's groundwater supplies. Thank you for your attention to this really important issue, and please consider the Greater Edwards Aquifer Alliance as a resource that you can rely on for important information related to water issues.
Louis Vetter, followed by Patricia Seidenberger, and then George Rice.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. I appreciate you having the opportunity for us to speak today. I'm Louis Vetter, President of the Conservation Society of San Antonio, and I speak on behalf of our more than 1,000 members and 10,000 volunteers when I rise to speak against the passage of the MUD number 2. The purpose of the society is to protect things and preserve things that are important to Texas and historic, and that includes our waterways and our parks. And this becomes specifically in line with what we're concerned about, because preserving this by not allowing the potential contamination is going to be critical. You know, the cost to address this problem is somewhat already known. And the first solution is don't put the sewer plant there over the aquifer. Early on, it was mentioned it could be somewhere between $20 and $40 million for SAWS to extend a sewer line and put it into their system where it's not being disclosed or discharged over the riverway. So simple as that. It's a function of money. It's a function of the profit margin that Lennar is looking for, and willingness for them to pass the risk and the cost of dealing with it later is what's at risk today. So I ask you to each think about what you'll be drinking and what your children will be drinking in the years to come for when that problem does occur with your water source. So, respectively, I ask that each of you consider it and vote no against the MUD. Thank you.
Patricia Seidenberger, followed by George Rice, and then Isabel Herrera.
Good morning. My name is Patricia Seidenberger, and I have been against the Lennar Homes Guajolote Ranch development and its wastewater plant for the last 3 years. I urge the San Antonio City Council members to deny the Lennar Homes ordinance or resolution for a municipal utility district MUD number 2 for the Guajolote Ranch high-density development with an on-site wastewater treatment plant, which would dump 4 million gallons of treated wastewater from the proposed 2,900 homes into the Edwards Aquifer, destroying San Antonio's drinking water for 1.7 million people. Southwest Research Institute did a 2-year study for the city and found that any discharge from the Guajolote Ranch would significantly degrade the watershed and the quality of water, recharging the Edwards Aquifer, destroying our drinking water forever, with dangerous compounds, forever chemicals, illicit drugs, pharmaceuticals, and antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Lennar Homes' request for a MUD for the Guajolote Ranch development would allow them to issue $150 million in bonds that would saddle new, unsuspecting homeowners with property taxes double or triple those of the country or neighboring cities, negating the promise of affordable housing in this area. The new homeowner, in essence, would not only be paying for their new home, but would be paying for all the infrastructure of the development. In addition, approval of the MUD might rely on county resources for new schools and roads and other infrastructure to support the high-density growth in Guajolote Ranch, meaning new additional taxes for San Antonio residents who don't even own a home in this development. Lennar's track record has no clear obligations to fulfill the intent of a negotiated strategic partnership agreement with the city. In 2020, with the Greater Edwards Aquifer fined Lennar Homes $175,000 for violating a negotiated settlement agreement regarding the 4S Ranch subdivision. By voting no for the Guajolote Ranch MUD Development 2, you can stop this catastrophic project from fully destroying San Antonio's drinking water from the Edwards Aquifer, affecting 1.7 million people in San Antonio and 2.7 million people from Brackettville to Kyle, Texas, who depend upon the Edwards Aquifer. Thank you.
George Rice, followed by Isabel Herrera, and then Gary Schindel.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. My name is George Rice. I'm a groundwater hydrologist, but you don't need to be any kind of a hydrologist to understand that discharging sewage effluent into a stream that recharges your main source of drinking water is a bad idea. No kind of a science degree is required to understand this. All that's required is common sense. So I ask you to please exercise your common sense and vote no. Thank you.
Isabel Herrera, followed by George Schindel, and then Alan Montemayor.
Good morning. I'm here to speak in opposition to the Guajolote Ranch development. Recently, Hays County judge called for an immediate transition to stage 4 water restrictions due to historic low water levels. It was an emergency response tied to real data, and yet today you are being asked to approve this development that would introduce millions of gallons of treated wastewater per day into Hilotes Creek, which is directly connected to the aquifer, recharge, and contributing zones. This is not just a San Antonio issue. This is a regional water security issue. TCEQ did file illegal action citing numerous errors in the permitting process, but has now approved a permit to allow the wastewater to be discharged into our aquifer. A study by the Southwest Research Institute conducted that even with proposed safeguards, treated wastewater from this would still reach groundwater and nearby wells. So when we are told sufficient protections are in place, we have to ask according to whom and based on what evidence. You can require a truly independent hydrological study, one not funded by the developer or SAWS. You can vote no on the development agreement itself, and other jurisdictions have required zero discharge or closed-loop reuse systems specifically because they sit over a recharge zone. Those options exist, and when the risks are irreversible, the burden should be on the developer, Lennar Homes, not on the public to absorb the consequences. This week, we saw another example of what happens when decisions are rushed without meaningful community process. A federal detention center was approved inside city limits without coordination with the zoning commission or the city. We are seeing a pattern. When developments are rushed, communities pay the price. Unfortunately, the wrong ice is melting. While communities across the nation are living in fear, here at home, our most vital resources is quietly slipping away. Let me remind you, water is not renewable. Once groundwater is contaminated, it cannot be reversed. The treatment of wastewater relies on chemicals and gases that carry documented risks. Across Texas, lakes are drying up. This is not a local drought. We are living in a global water bankruptcy. You acknowledge that there are horror stories across the Texas where muds failed. These municipalities were told there were sufficient protections too. The city of San Antonio is not required to consent to the creation of this mud. Without your consent, TCEQ cannot create this mud. Council members, a development should never come at the cost of water security. Today, you have the ability and responsibility to act. Deny consent to the mud. Vote no on this ordinance and protect our aquifers for the millions of community members who depend on it.
Gary Schindel, Alan Montemayor, and then Don Leidner.
I'm Alan Montemayor. I cede my time to Gary Schindel.
I'm Diana Duncan. I'm giving my time to Gary.
You have 9 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. I thought it was important that I address the council to maybe clarify
some misconceptions that were made about some of the work that I've previously done. To give you some background in myself, again, my name is Gary Schindel. I'm a Texas professional geologist and practicing karst hydrogeologist. I have more than 45 years experience working on water resource, water quality, and hazardous waste management issues in more than 30 states and 10 countries. I've served as the Chief Technical Officer for Aquifer Science Director and Senior Hydrogeologist with the Edwards Aquifer Authority for more than 23 years before retiring. I was hired by the EAA to create the science research and data collection programs and provide technical assistance to the Board of Directors. Among the many tasks at the EAA, I supervised the development of the Aquifer's groundwater management models, set up and ran the dye tracing research programs, established a 250 water well level monitoring network, and established the first extensive well and spring and water quality sampling program. Under my direction, water sampling grew from a few wells along the saline water line with limited parameter sets to include over 100 wells sampled on a yearly basis for a wide range of parameters. I was the liaison for the City of San Antonio's Edwards Aquifer Protection Program, formerly known as Prop 1, where I performed and supervised geologic assessments for approximately 100,000 acres. I was the senior author of the U.S. EPA's guidance document on source water protection in karst areas, a national model for protecting karst supplies. This document was referenced in the Federal Register during the updates for the Safe Drinking Water Act. It noted that karst aquifers are the most vulnerable aquifer type to contamination. I've been a keynote speaker for UNESCO conferences. I've lectured extensively in Europe and the U.S. universities. I've been professional certifications in 5 states. I've managed investigations for the National Priority List Superfund sites, properties, basically think Love Canal and Valley of the Drums type sites. I'm also the past president of the National Speleological Society and have visited thousands of caves on 4 continents, set up and managed the state of Kentucky's groundwater section and branch, and was the senior author on the state's groundwater protection strategy. I've served as a subject matter expert on caves in the San Antonio Fire Department and also for Texas Parks and Wildlife. So you may say that I may know my rear from a hole in the ground. I've directed experience working on the hydrogeology of the Helotes Creek Basin, specifically within the Gray Forest area. I performed geologic assessments on more than 1,000 acres in the area and made recommendations to the City of San Antonio on the acquisition of properties to protect the water quality of the Edwards Aquifer. I speak to you today as an independent hydrogeologist with only the interest of the citizens of San Antonio, and I am receiving compensation. I am not receiving compensation here today, represent only myself, and do not live in the Helotes Creek watershed. I ask that you turn down the request for Lennar's mud application for the Guadalupe Ranch with the concern that high-density development in the Helotes Creek watershed and within the Edwards Aquifer contributing zone will adversely impact water quality in the Trinity and Edwards Aquifer. This will place private and public water supply wells at great risk. High-density development will exceed the capacity of the shallow aquifer and soils to filter and retain chemical and biological waste. Small public treatment systems do not treat waste contaminated with oil, grease, paint, solvents, PFAS, heavy metals, etc. These materials will be discharged into the waste stream and into Helotes Creek where they enter the Trinity and Edwards aquifers. Water from the Trinity and Edwards aquifers receives very little treatment until it reaches the consumer, where it is highly filtered through our livers and kidneys, placing an undue burden on the body and increasing cancer risks. Groundwater contamination in karst is exceptionally difficult to investigate and remediate. Water wells will commonly require advanced treatment systems or be entirely abandoned, such as those wells around the West Avenue landfill here in San Antonio from back in the 60s. The old saying that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is absolutely true in karst terrains. I also want to speak directly about the letter submitted by the San Antonio Water System in support of the formation of the mud. In response to their comments regarding the Glen Rose Aquifer, I have directly observed cave and karst features with all of the units of the exposed Glen Rose limestone within the Helotes Creek watershed. This is also reflected in the absence of surface water in much of Helotes. Most water flows within enlarged fractures and bedding planes in the subsurface of the basin. The SAWS letter also stated that the Habe Crossing Fault is a barrier to groundwater flow from Trinity to the Edwards Aquifer. However, there is no evidence such as groundwater level data, tracer data, or aquifer pump tests that support that assumption. The displacement of the Habee Crossing Fault in the Lotus Creek area is approximately 200 feet. Dye tracing studies that I directed, I designed, and were carried out under my direction by George Vinnie and Associates and the employees of the EAA show clearly that dye can pass across major faults in the Edwards Aquifer. The dyes and therefore water cross 5 major faults in the Panther Creek area, Panther Springs Basin, and where one of the faults had more than 300 feet displacement. And this is greater than the Habee Crossing Fault displacement in Helotes. 2 dye tests in Poor Boy Cave occurred within the Camp Bullis unit of the Glen Rose limestone, the one noted by saws as being resistant to water leaching downwards into other rock formations. These tracer tests showed an estimated groundwater velocity from 6,900 feet per day to 11,600 feet per day. It is reasonable to assume that most faults do not function as barriers to flow in the Edwards Aquifer, but actually act as avenues for movement of water between geologic units. We know this from the dye tracing data referenced above, as well as from direct observation of fault control and the occurrence of flow at 4 major spring sites in the Edwards Aquifer. This includes the San Pedro and San Antonio Springs formed along major faults on the north side of downtown San Antonio. Other examples are Comel Springs Fault in New Braunfels, and also the fault that occurs at San Marcos, where there's about 400 feet of displacement. Other springs near or on faults in the Edwards Aquifer include Barton Springs in Austin, Waco Springs on the Guadalupe River, Comel County, and Fort Clark Springs in Brackettville, and San Felipe Springs in Del Rio. All the reference faults allow water to flow up or down depending on the hydraulic head. For example, during droughts, San Pedro and San Antonio Springs are dry and will allow surface water from the Olmus Creek Basin to enter the subsurface and potentially contaminate the Edwards Aquifer. The data presented by saws related to water chemistry also appears to be very selective and not representative of the entirety of the Trinity or Edwards Aquifer. Generally, the water chemistry between the Trinity and Edwards Aquifers is remarkably similar and hard to differentiate. The water chemistry of both aquifers was formed from dissolution of the limestone matrix. The comparison of 2 wells is not reflective of water chemistry of these 2 complex aquifers. The components that is most useful for differentiating water between the 2 aquifers is strontium, which was not used in the SAWS analysis. In addition, large amounts of data looking at well depth, the geologic unit they're completed in, well casing, water levels, etc., would need to be accounted for. The use of the only 2 data points is very simplistic and misleading. The sensitivity of contamination of the Edwards Aquifer along the Lotus Creek watershed is also reflected from the impacts from the Lotus mulch fire. The fire occurred on the Del Rio clay, a supposedly impervious geologic unit above the Edwards Aquifer. However, the leachate from the fire entered the Edwards Aquifer, most likely through the Del Rio clay, and resulted in contamination of nearby Edwards wells. This highlights the extreme vulnerability of the Edwards Aquifer to the Lotus Creek watershed. Further south, near Bronze Station, was the site of a major outbreak of Cryptosporidius in 1984 from the Edwards Aquifer public water well. Approximately 200 people became sick from this outbreak. Cryptosporidia protozoan is commonly associated with cattle waste, and the outbreak was most likely caused by transmittal through the vulnerable karst aquifers. As is apparent from the paragraphs above, high-density development in the contributing zone or recharge zone of the Edwards Aquifer places an undue burden on the citizens of San Antonio, and I ask that you deny the request for the MUD application. Thank you very much.
Don Leidner. And would someone please confirm Catherine Feist is the same as Kate Hall Feist, correct? Same person? Okay, thank you. So Don Leidner and then David Werner and Jennifer Nottingham, please. Don Leidner. Okay. David Werner. Excuse me? You did. David Werner, okay. Jennifer Nottingham. Okay, thank you. Jack Finger, and then followed by our final speaker on this topic, Ronald Green.
Well, Madam Mayor, other members of our illustrious San Antonio City Council, once again, my name is Jack M. Finger. I guess the question is, do you really want to risk polluting our drinking water? You've heard a lot of facts from a lot of people here today. In fact, I'm really amazed. This is the one issue where the tree huggers And the conservatives actually have gotten together and say, don't do this. They don't want our water being polluted. Now, the other people say, well, we're going to treat the wastewater. You do not need to worry about it. Can you trust that? Huh? Do you realize what's happening here? Sewage water gets treated and then gets thrown back into our aquifer. And we think we can trust that water? I don't think so. And you see, others talked about this karst formation, that material that has all these little holes in it. That's the thing that filters out the bad stuff. But if it gets clogged with sewage, treated sewage, eventually it will not do its job. That's what makes the Edwards Aquifer such a gem. We have pure water, filtered water, and we've had it for generations. And you want to destroy it. Do you really want to destroy it? We've had this conversation time and time again over the last several decades. And time and again, it has been a real question mark. Do we really want to destroy our one and only gem, our drinking water? Because if we do, you think our water bills are high now? Just think of the question marks you're going to be faced with even higher bills from SAWS when the time comes, because our water is so polluted we have to look elsewhere for better, pure water. It pretty much comes down to that. Why take a chance? Why take a chance? Thank you.
Ronald Green.
Madam Mayor and City Council, my name's Ron Green. I'm a groundwater hydrologist with experience on the Trinity and Edwards aquifers. I was a senior member of the research team that conducted the 2020 evaluation of the impact of wastewater facilities located in the contributing zone of the Edwards Aquifer. The site for the evaluation was the Helotes Creek watershed. The study concluded that regardless of the type of facility, the impact to water recharge to the Edwards Aquifer is dependent on the amount of mass load discharged to the environment, regardless of the wastewater disposal facility type. To my understanding, there have been no additional studies conducted that refute this finding. I read the 9 factors negotiated by SAWS to mitigate impact of the release of wastewater to the environment in the proposed project. Given the karstic nature of the contributing zone in Helotes Creek watershed, none of these factors will make a meaningful difference to the impact that effluent would have on recharge to the Edwards Aquifer. SAWS claims that the project would not risk the safety of the Edwards Aquifer. Its argument is based on opinions, not science. SAWS claims are not backed by any studies, data, information, either informal or peer-reviewed. I prepared a technical brief that represents a clear consensus of the technical community from the last 3 decades. I shared this technical brief with the mayor and members of City Council 2 weeks ago. The technical community that I cited includes the U.S. Geological Survey, the Edwards Aquifer Authority, the University of Texas San Antonio, the University of Texas Austin, the Bureau of Economic Geology, which is a state geological survey, local research institutes, and others. Their positions on the subject are clear and unambiguous. Ill-advised development over areas which recharge the Edwards Aquifer will degrade water quality. The remaining questions are when will the health and safety of the community be impacted, and when will this impact be irreversible? Once ill-advised development of the contributing and recharge zones in northwest Bexar County goes forward, the source area for the Edwards Aquifer will be put at risk that could otherwise be avoided. Please make any decisions regarding development on actual science and not opinions. Thank you.
That was the final speaker on items 4 and 5. May I have a motion to approve item 4 so we may begin council discussion?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll also entertain a second motion to approve item 5 so we can talk about them at the same time.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, thanks. Great, thanks. We'll now move on to council discussion. Ms. White. Colleagues, please sign in if you'd like to speak. My system is broken. Is it frozen? Okay, we'll figure that out. Can't see it. Okay. Great. Ms. White, thank you for the presentation. For clarity, the 7, and just as a reminder, irrespective of whether we take action or approve, deny the MUD, we still would receive the 2 developmental protections as well as the 17 water quality protections outlined in your presentation, correct?
Yes, so on slide 7, where I list out the water quality protection, the wastewater development controls, so that would include the 9 that were negotiated with the SAWS Water USA, and then the 10 with the settlement agreement.
Okay,
those would remain.
Great, thank you. Actually, if we would, just keep up slide 7, please, thank you. Because we are trying to understand, as you point out on your last slide, some of these development protections are only afforded to us if we approve the MUD. The likelihood of those being entertained or even potentially reviewed, entertained by the developer are not very high, as you pointed out. And when this goes to TCEQ, it sounds like, was it 1, if I remember the statistic, 1 that has been denied over the years?
Yes, based on conversations that we had with TCEQ, they denied, in about 20 years, they denied 1, but it was actually based on the application itself.
Okay.
That's what we were told.
Gotcha, okay. So on this slide, on the left-hand side, the water quality protection, that first bullet and the 2 sub-bullets, that is reflective in the way you just described, the 2 development and then the 17 water quality protections, correct?
Yes, the USA and the settlement agreement.
So the last 2 things then would be new as part of the city's development agreement, correct?
Yes, those 2 were added as part of the development agreement.
Okay. How can you help us understand, so SAW's review of final sealed as-built plans, is that in any way comparable to what is already covered in the water quality protection plans that we would already receive?
So when we were looking at developing or negotiating the development agreement, we did share it with SAWS, so that's in addition to, so it's actually the plans of the actual plant. So they added that as a condition of the development agreement. So it's in addition to the 9 and.
Yeah, no, I understand it's an addition. I'm trying to understand what is the material addition as a result of what is already in the SAWS plan.
It's actually looking at the plans itself. It's
Okay,
not
just looking at the plans.
Yes, looking at the plans themselves. And then the second one would be inspecting, the ability to inspect the wastewater plant at their discretion upon reasonable notice to the developer. That's not included in the 9 and then the additional 10.
Mayor, if I may make a
Go ahead.
clarification, you're asking about the development agreement and what additional protections. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Lennar's made it very clear they're not going to sign the development agreement.
Yeah,
So
understood.
we're essentially talking conceptual.
Understood, but we're going to vote on it, so I wanted to understand what is being asked that is different than what we already get.
Right.
Understood, because because they haven't signed it now doesn't mean that they might not sign it in the future. There is a possibility for that. That's why I want to understand what additionally would we get that is only available currently. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
So those two are the additional ones, ma'am.
Thank you. On slide 9, help me, if you would, Ms. White, help me understand. So that last point there, SAW's ability to inspect the wastewater treatment plant, how is that different than the last part of point 3 on slide 9?
That would be a question for SAWS. We added the bullet about the wastewater treatment plant
Okay.
itself, while this, I believe, has to do with their backflow and the actual system.
Got it. Thank you. And appreciate the, as we are trying to balance, right, certainly the water protections, but also the development protections. In the original, there's only 2 development protections. The MUD comes with several more development protections. And thank you for providing examples of what those protections would mean in the instance that we may potentially need to annex this piece of property in the future, which I know is a concern of many of my colleagues, given, frankly, some of the terrible stories across the state where they annexed a piece of property which was, let's just say, less than desirable. Can you help us understand the development protections here that would only come about with approving this MUD? How would you compare those to the 2 development protections that we currently have?
May I ask which slide you're referring to there?
Slide 7. Yeah, so those new development things that we only get if we approve the MUD, how important are those? What more do they add in terms of protection or development protection on top of the 2 development provisions that we already receive?
So it's really more or less an added layer of protection. So right now, as I mentioned in my last slide, if the ones that would remain would be the first bullet under water quality protection, and then the first bullet under development. So the additional kind of layer, so to speak, would be the second 2 under water quality protection, which would be looking at the plans, and then also the ability of SAWS to look at the wastewater treatment site itself, plant itself,
So,
but then also
yeah.
under development would be the additional annexation and then additional things like that.
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
No, I was trying to better help quantify, or maybe John, if you want to come up here and potentially explain how the additional development protections, talk about the additional protection that they offer over the 2 things that we've got now. I mean, when we had our discussion, I think as you've also shared with my colleagues, you know, the challenges potentially with absorbing a MUD in the future, and what this affords us that the current protections would not.
Yes, Mayor, I think I would highlight that with any future annexation of this property, the development agreement would ensure that we would not incur the debt of the MUD. So there would either be a payoff of that debt or a structure in which that community would continue to service that debt, so we would never absorb it.
So just to be very clear, based on what you just described, in the future, if we don't have that protection, we could have to take something on that has debt?
If there were a future annexation, it could be a possibility. This is just a protection that we could put in place now.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
And I would like to say that annexation is a little tricky, so typically it has to be adjacent to the municipality. Okay. So in this case, because this area is not adjacent, because it's future and we don't want to bind a future council, sure. But if a future council wants to annex, as you mentioned, Mayor, making sure that development is done in a certain way. So yes, as John is saying, it allows us to annex through voluntary annexation. So that means 3,000 property owners would need their signatures. They've already agreed to that. But then also the cap, if we do annex, if the district does have debt, we can, as I mentioned, have a post-annexation surcharge. So with annexation, we just have to be mindful of the laws that they can change. So we may or may not even be able to annex in the future, but this allows us, or the future council, the opportunity to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I would also just point out that the third-party conservation easement, so Lennar has committed to keeping a piece of land as a green area. So this development agreement would put in place that a third party would hold a conservation easement for that piece of the property, so that you know, some third party who could make sure that Lennar keeps that green and follows the conservation
regulations around that piece of land. That's another protection in this as well.
Mhm, mhm.
I think we covered the annexation one, and then
The first bullet.
So because the area is in the ETJ, there's some applicable subdivision regulations. So as I mentioned, the tree ordinance, science connectivity. I also mentioned that some would go away. And so ones that would go away would be those related to like the increased road access, and also the military protection, lighting and sound. So
To clarify, those go away if the MUD is approved?
those would go away if the development agreement would not be approved.
No development agreement. What are the things then that we are opening ourselves up to?
So yes, so if the development agreement were not in place or would not be approved, so for example, the area itself is in 5 miles of a military installation. However, it's not within our designated ETJ MPA, a military protection area. So the development agreement includes language that has the developer complying with lighting and sound. So if the development agreement is not approved, then they would not have to comply with those particular standards. So that's an additional thing that the development agreement includes.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's and I'm asking you to do something, and part of it, to your point, is actually asking what a future council may consider, but to the extent we can actually help a future council and potentially help ourselves, of the 6 developmental protections that we would be adding through a development agreement, combined with the 2 that we already get, how important, if we were to take this on, how important are the 6 that we would be adding versus the 2 that we're getting?
I believe, Mayor, that really would be a policy question.
Yeah.
In talking to council, each of you have different priorities, and so I know conservation is important. So if the development agreement is not approved, then the ability to have that being held by a third party would not be included, but then also the ability for SAWS to look at the wastewater treatment plant and really kind of have eyes on the facility. So the 9 plus the 10 that are included, yes, we'll look at water quality protection. So it's really looking at weighing the water quality protection plus the additional terms that it would be part of the development agreement.
And then one of my final questions here, the development protection that comes only if we approve the MUD is appropriate ingress and egress to the development, right? Increased road network access points. So if we don't have that, as part of this, what does that development ultimately look like?
So the development agreement, as I mentioned, the site is in the ETJ, so it does follow some applicable subdivision regulations, including connectivity. But given the access, that's an additional point that was added in our development agreement. So it looks at increased road network access points. So as the site is developed, they would have to go back and go through DSD in terms of looking at the MVP. So that's in addition to the connectivity point or term.
The fact that that's not currently part of the development, we wouldn't necessarily, I mean, you're really then up to whatever the developer wants to do. Really, the short of it is these development agreements allow for city regulations in this area, if I've captured correctly what John explained last time.
So yes, it's an added layer of protection, and the development agreement runs with the land. So if the development agreement is approved, it is filed with the county.
Councilwoman Alderete-Gavito.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you so much to all the speakers who made time again and again to be here today. You know, right when I first learned about this issue, I mean, it's very clear that water is personal. I mean, we think about it every single day when we fill up our kids' water bottles for school. And so I understand why y'all are organized around this fight. I understand why y'all want to continue fighting. I understand y'all's passion. When this, again, was first brought to my attention, we dug right in. We sent that memo to SAWS and the Greater Edwards Aquifer Authority. Councilwoman Mess and I co-signed that CCR that y'all mentioned. We went out to visit. We've had several conversations and meetings about this. This today is an important milestone. So with that, I stand with y'all today, and I will be voting no. Thanks.
Councilman Villagrán.
Thank you, Mayor. The culture of the ETJ is something very different here, and based on recent report, there's no single consolidated number of municipal utility districts that have been formally disapproved in the entire South Texas region, as these proposals are generally handled on a case-by-case by local city councils or the Texas TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. I think what we have here today is while Helotes is only 30 minutes away, for me, representing the South and the Southeast side, this is a whole different community culture and priorities. And it was obviously demonstrated by today through the number of speakers that there is a lack of familiarity with this council, who this council is, and the rest of San Antonio and what they represent. So I'm going to have Donovan come up because there were things said about SAWS that I didn't appreciate. So I want Donovan to come out and talk specifically in terms of where SAWS stands and what they're compelled by state to engage in with this developer.
Thank you, Councilwoman. For the record, I'm Donovan Burton with San Antonio Water System. I thank you. SAWS takes no position on the MUD district, the creation of the MUD district. There are decisions much beyond even the water and wastewater side, so that's a different decision. Our focus is making sure and agreeing with everybody who's spoken that the quality of the water in the Edwards Aquifer is our principal thing that we want to make sure is covered. So that is our focus, and so you have to look at that from various lenses, and I think one thing that's been really discounted is what those conditions that the mayor and others were talking about. Those conditions are some of the most stringent in the state and almost to drinking water standards, safe for human contact, safe for food crops, and that sort of thing. And so those standards are very important that a SAWS board put in place in that contract.
And I want to distinguish this because, as you know, and many of you here know, in terms of the climate sustainability and resiliency, that's very important to me. And I think it's important that we get the difference between what is recharge, the term recharge, and that this is a contributing zone, correct?
Correct. This is a contributing zone, and so the water that would collect in the area, like Helotes Creek and other creeks, tributaries, would collect in that area and ultimately flow over the recharge zone of the Edwards Aquifer.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to be very specific about, because I know that we have taken efforts to make sure that we are protecting no development in the actual recharge zone in some of the portions of the Edwards Aquifer, and we have that owning the development rights basically in some areas. So I think there's more dialogue and efforts between communities, the county, and the state that have to be created when we're talking about MUDs. Thank you, Donovan. You can sit down. Because I'm going to take the next portion of my time to really, because of what was brought up by the speakers, is PFAS is a problem nationwide and statewide. And we have that problem as a majority, as the river, as everything flows south. That is my creekways, my portion of the river of the south part of San Antonio. So when we have those conversations, understanding that that is not just specific to this area, that it is specific to the entire city and the entire zone. And the other is that we seriously do have to consider the toilet to tap future that other nations and parts of this state are using. Direct potable resource use is already used in El Paso, Big Springs, Wichita Falls. El Paso is looking at that, and that's why as we talk about this today, one is, this is Helotes. It's not San Antonio, but this developer came to San Antonio to try and get this agreement. I am not going to approve it because I don't think it is what we in San Antonio need to prioritize. But I do want the passion that you brought today. I want that in the future as we talk in San Antonio's, because other MUDs will come, other developments will come. I will continue to sit here from the dais and say, when we talk about wastewater, we need to talk direct potable reuse. When we talk about how we're treating the water and PFAS, we need to talk at the state level of what sort of requirements are coming down. So thank you for your passion. I hope that the enthusiasm you have to get involved with us now continues into the future, because we have got a lot of work to do in order to protect our water and to move forward. And I do, again, want to be confident in that. We just had our meeting with SAWS, and we are, as a city council that runs the public utility, working with them to make sure that they are doing what is necessary. And we all need to get on board with what that script is as we go up to the state and we go up to the federal government asking for help to protect our water system. So thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Spears.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a couple of quick questions off of what the mayor was asking. So does this, in fact, expand the ETJ if it were passed, and how much?
Does this expand the ETJ?
Mm-hmm.
No.
It won't expand our ETJ if we pass that annexation agreement?
No, the district is within our ETJ, so it's not going to change the boundaries of our ETJ.
Okay. So then you said, or maybe it was John, said that this would be, the debt would be absorbed by the community?
I can explain it. So basically what happens with a MUD, if the municipality chooses to annex that particular district, if there is outstanding debt, then the municipality would take on that debt, unlike a PID. So according to the Texas Water Code, the municipality can have a post-annexation surcharge that would only be charged to those within the district. But it's only if the municipality annexes the district in the future.
Only if they vote to annex it, right?
Only if they annex.
Okay. So, I mean, I said this before, I'm pro-property rights and really pro-development, but I just think we really have to be responsible about that and make sure that it's infrastructure that for our region that will cause us to all thrive. But development needs to be fair to homeowners and smart for our taxpayers and very much protective of our water. And I've talked about this before because my district in District 9 sits over the Edwards Recharge Zone, and I really appreciate the Sam family. I did see your headwaters. I appreciate you help explaining what the karst features are, how they operate, what they look like, because I'm always explaining that. We too have very little soil on top, and it's a huge thing. So we have a lot of karst features, and we're very protective of them in San Antonio and in my district. So I completely understand where you're coming from, and thank you for that. And groundwater is proving to be more and more impactful and important to our aquifer overall, so thank you. But it is important to also note there is still a pending appeal before the TCEQ, which is under review. And we need to remember that before we take any sort of action here. But water is definitely our most precious thing we can ever protect. And but shifting gears towards the financing structure of this, the fact remains that this creates a separate government with its own permanent tax rate. It is taxing future homeowners without their consent and their input. And it's managed by a board that is not us, it's not elected, it's a board of the developers initially. They can issue debt and issue bonds, and it can be a burden on taxpayers for decades, whether they vote to annex or not. And I think that future homeowners deserve certainty. They deserve to know what they're paying for and how long they'll pay. And I don't think a MUD provides that clarity. It's not project specific, it is not finite, and it does not end once the infrastructure is paid off. I also think that it's a false sense of security and control to think that we would gain anything in developing this MUD at the city. So for these reasons, I am going to be against both 4 and 5. Thank you.
Councilwoman Castillo.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Bridget, for the presentation, as well as to the members of the public for giving your comment. My position remains the same during the last B session. I have a number of concerns, primarily with the MUD structure. What we know, and as my colleague has mentioned, this is a taxing entity that has a representation by unelected officials, and the Texas Comptroller has identified that MUDs is a large growing special taxing district, which is totaling over $12.7 billion being diverted from the state of Texas into these specific districts, again, with no elected representation, determining where those dollars, how they get allocated, and how they could impact the overall state. Again, these are dollars that can otherwise be going towards public safety, education, public health, so on and so forth. Further, as folks have mentioned in their public comment, we know that this is a threat to our water quality. As folks have also mentioned, we cannot make more water. So when we talk about forever chemicals, the impact that's going to have to the overall health, this is something that we should be taking into account today. Yesterday, we had a very robust conversation around SAWS, particularly around the impact of growth throughout the city of San Antonio and how that is going to impact our overall water quality. And when we talk about the high density over our recharge zone, this will impact our water quality. Lastly, what we know is in terms of the infrastructure in this location, it does not have the basic infrastructure to support such a large and high amount of density in this area. So it's important that we keep into consideration the egress, so on and so forth, to ensure that folks can safely commute in and out of this area. So with that, again, as I mentioned during the last B session, I will be opposing this MUD because of the taxing structure and the impact to our water quality. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Munguia.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to tell everyone thank you again. You all have been fantastic. I know it's a long drive for many of you to be here. You've been very organized. You reached out to all our offices, which I know isn't easy. You've come up here and speak before us, and I'm sure many of you didn't think that you'd have to be up at front of the San Antonio City Council so many times to talk about this project. But it shows your dedication, right? And I was able to be out there with y'all and see firsthand. And I think what's so special is a lot of the long-standing heritage so many of you have with the land that you live on, right? So many of you, it's a multi-generational property, and you have wells that you've been drinking and using water out of. So it's very, very personal and important to you and your families. And I have to say, you know, nothing brings people out like water, right? We had, many, many years ago, the Applewhite Reservoir was a huge, huge controversial issue. People came out. PGA was a huge water issue. Many, many years ago, people came out. Vista Ridge, another huge water issue, people came out. And so this, of course, it hasn't changed anything. So, you know, my concerns have always been the long-term management of the wastewater treatment facility. I just do not think that that belongs there. And that neighborhood will be equipped to handle the long-term maintenance of that for 30 years plus, long after we're all out of here in office. Especially with the weather being what it is, freezes, changes in topography, I just don't have faith in that. And you know, in my district, we have a lot of concerns with water because we've had pollution with Kelly Air Force Base, right? And a lot of folks in the Quintana neighborhood where my mother grew up had wells that they used, and those wells became polluted, and groundwater became toxic. And there are so many examples in that neighborhood of people dying from cancer. And so we are very sensitive to that. And my residents have been right there with y'all, even though we're miles away. They have constantly come up to me and said, Councilman, please do not support that project. So they know how much it matters for all of our community, not just your own neighborhood. And I know that the battle is going to continue, right, with TCEQ, and this is not the last of it, but I hope today, with our votes that we'll be making, is going to be a good story to tell, right, of people who came, who organized, who showed some great examples, and ultimately convinced the City Council to deny this request. And I think that is a really positive, great story to tell. And so that's why I'm proud today to vote against this item. And I wish you all the very best, and let us know how we can continue to help you. Thank you.
Councilman Mesa Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everybody that was here today, was here in the last B session. Proud to support your efforts, and just to be very clear, I will be voting no on the MUD today. And item 5 as well. I wanted to just get clarification for item 4 and 5. If it's a no to 4, would it logically extend to item 5 as well, or?
Councilwoman, yes, it's structured so that one depends on the other, but they're separate items, so it'll be 2 votes.
Okay. So again, thank you to everybody for being here today. We know that our city is growing. I see it firsthand, just getting on 1604 in my district, in the Kyle Seal area, Hills and Dales. Everybody knows that, right? They are seeing that growth. They have front row to that growth, actually. So I just, again, want to appreciate everyone for coming out. Thank you for the T-shirt. And, you know, with the saying, to whom much is given, much is expected. And we've been given the aquifer as our water resource, and I think we should be expected to protect it at all costs. And so we're doing that here today. I want to thank all of my colleagues for supporting our CCR, the Councilwoman and ICCR, and I look forward to voting no. Thank you.
Councilman White.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to begin by thanking everybody that came out and really for all the organization and the education that I know for me, for sure, I went through over the past few months. This one is really relatively easy for me. I am a pro land rights guy. I believe in development if done responsibly, and usually if you've got your own land, you can do what you want with it. The exception, of course, comes when it could hurt other people. And here we have a situation, as we really talked about yesterday, water is a very, very valuable resource, and it's unfortunately becoming somewhat scarce here in our state. And from what I've seen, at the very, very least, the science is conflicting. And the fact that there may be some harm done to our water system is just unacceptable to me. It's a risk that we cannot take. My colleagues have talked about the MUD structure, the taxes that could fall on our citizens in the future. I think that's part of it as well, but for me, it really comes down to protecting our water source, and that's why I'll be voting no on these items today.
Councilman McKee Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. I think everything that could possibly be said has been said, and so I just want to convey to you all, I was a no on this from the jump, and I have not been moved. Thank you all for all the time and planning and coordination. I am a big fan of organizing, and looking at you all and how you've maintained this energy for all of this time is really inspiring, and I hope you continue to do so for all of the positive efforts. And I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, Councilman Kaur.
Just echoing the comments that I made a couple weeks ago, voting no, go get them at TCEQ.
Councilman Gavon.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everybody who has been active on this issue, for being here today, for talking to my office, all the residents in District 6 who have reached out to me as well, and my office to remind us about this important vote today. I don't have anything more to say aside from probably voting no on both. Thank you.
There being no further discussion, is moved and seconded to, excuse me. Yep. There being no further discussion, it is moved and seconded to approve item 4. We'll again vote on these separately. Item 4, please vote. motion fails. There being no further discussion, it is moved and seconded to approve item 5. Please vote. The motion fails. Okay. The time is now 11:45 p.m. on February 5th. The City Council of the City of San Antonio will now meet in executive session to consult with the City Attorney's Office pursuant to Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code and to deliberate or discuss the following items: economic development, negotiations pursuant to Section 551.087, the purchase, exchange, lease or value of real property pursuant to Section 551.072, and legal issues related to litigation involving the city, emergency preparedness, and collective bargaining, all pursuant to Section 551.071.